Are we back?
This is
Can you hear me?
Sports Drive.
Give me just a sec.
Looks like we had a little bit of technical difficulties with Kalle Sorbo. I think we have him back now. Zoom started skipping a little bit, just kind of a caution, a hazard of the job when you run a TV show on Zoom. Kalle, do we have you? Can I hear you good now?
Yes, can you hear me?
We are all good. All right, let's get back into talking about the Summer League and the Spurs and the Rockets in particular.
Really young, exciting cores out of both of those. I like what I saw in the second game from Victor W. He had some highlight blocks, 27 points, obviously. I'm a little worried about his size at the NBA level because he plays a lot like a perimeter player right now with a lot of touch shooting and running out on the baseline, that type of thing. And what really is his greatest advantage is his height. So I think he needs to build a little bit of muscle over the next couple years, develop a little bit of a post game. But long term, I'm absolutely sold on him being a star in this league. And then the Rockets on the other side of things, Jabari Smith was probably the most impressive player I saw at Summer League this year. The buzzer beater in game one, huge game in game two. Obviously, you've got Amon Thompson there too. I really think that young core is going to be something really exciting to see. And we'll see. Obviously, Alpert Şengün, big man that likes to play a little bit pass first, like Jokic type style. We'll see if he can develop, gain a little bit of size. But I think there's some really exciting things happening in Texas.
Yeah, and this is one thing that I think is interesting, and I've talked about it on this show previously, comparing the way that the Rockets and the Spurs are each going about developing their young core. You mentioned Jabari Smith Jr., probably the most impressive player in the entire Summer League so far. He's been absolutely on a tear. That buzzer beater was insane. And obviously Wembanyama, what can you say that hasn't been said? The hype around him has been just astronomical. A little bit of a slow start in that first game, but bounced back, showed the Wembanyama that I think everybody was sort of expecting to see in that second game. You mentioned his size. I agree. Even as a Spurs fan, I think he needs to bulk up. He's going to get bullied in the post a little bit for those first couple of years if he doesn't. But I'm curious what your take is on these two teams and the way they're going about developing their young talent, because in free agency, I feel like they both went pretty opposite directions. I think that the Rockets are really, I'm not sure what the end game is with the Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks signings specifically. Because those two guys, to me, I don't see how they necessarily help the Rockets out that much. I think all that they do in bringing them in is kind of keep their young core on the sidelines a little bit more than they would have been had they not brought in Brooks and VanVleet. That being said, I don't see Brooks or VanVleet as the kind of talent that you would bring in that is worth sidelining your young talent and worth taking reps away from your young guys. The Spurs, on the other hand, didn't really do a lot of that. Didn't make a lot of waves in free agency. Pretty much just brought back the same core that they had. Obviously made a trade for Cedi Osman and then Reggie Bullock as well, but those are really the only two key additions. No real big losses on the team. What is your take on these two strategies by these two teams in Texas? Because I feel like going into free agency, they were pretty similar teams in a lot of ways. Exciting young core, don't know how high the potential is. And now looking at it, in my opinion, I think they're very different teams based on the way that they handled free agency.
Yeah, I'm not going to try and make sense of the Dillon Brooks signing. It makes absolutely no sense to me, just to be honest. But I think with the Fred VanVleet signing, I think he's a really good player, and they just need an adult in the room. I think they've been sort of wandering around aimlessly, just trying to give minutes to their young guys over the last 2 years, and that's led to a lot of ISO-heavy ball without anyone really running the point, really running the offense. So I think Fred VanVleet is coming to be the adult in the room to settle it, to actually run a real NBA offense so that those guys can learn from a vet what that is like. So I actually like that signing for them, even though it might sideline some of their young guys for a second. And then the Spurs, they do have that adult in the room in Greg Popovich, and when you have a coach like that, you can afford to give those young guys minutes. And I just think the plan is going to be to play the young guys, let them figure it out. I don't think they're vying for a playoff spot next year, but I think that's all part of the plan.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I want to circle back to the Nuggets a little bit and this past playoff run. Talking about covering that playoff run, you mentioned it was insane, exhausting, but a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You know, I know that you have been a Nuggets fan for quite some time. Is that correct?
Whole life, yeah.
Right.
Became a Nuggets fan during the Melo era.
Right. So obviously from a media point of view, it's an exciting thing to get to be a part of that. From a fan's point of view, having been a Nuggets fan your entire life, how special was that to get to the moment, you know, the confetti's falling, they've done it. How special was that for you?
It didn't really hit me until the parade, to be honest, because you're so caught up in the work of it and just getting through the next show and trying to do that. But at the parade, seeing the guys be overcome with emotion on the stage, lifting up that trophy, the confetti's falling, it brought a tear to my eye just because for so long when you're a fan of a small market team, big stars don't come here. You need a top 5 guy in the NBA to win the title. Like, we never thought that would happen in Denver, man. Like, being a Nuggets fan, there's this saying that we've sort of reclaimed called Nug Life, where it's like, if something bad can happen, it will happen to the Nuggets, right? And so we sort of use that statement, Nug Life, throughout everything, but we've sort of reclaimed it. Like, Nug Life is something to be proud of now because of what the Nuggets have done. And, you know, it's been cool, and I'm just very grateful and excited the fact that I get to be there to witness this entire Jokic era. It's like watching one of the all-time greats in his prime. You got to experience with Tim Duncan, you know, so you know how special it is when you truly have one of those top 25, top 20 all-time guys on your team, and you get to see what that's like. It becomes really special as a fan, and it's just a joy to watch this team play basketball on a night-to-night basis, and to see that pay off, man, it meant the world.
Yeah. I honestly, I agree in a lot of ways. It is a joy to watch that team play basketball. In a lot of ways, during that playoff run, they kind of reminded me a little bit, not all the way. Obviously, they're very different teams. But they did remind me a little bit of those early 2000s Spurs teams, those Spurs championship playoff teams. They play a very, you know, pure form of basketball, I felt like. And I felt like I hadn't really seen that, especially on a stage as big as the NBA Finals. I hadn't seen it as much since those Spurs championships, personally. And obviously Nikola Jokic, like you mentioned, being able to witness a top 5 talent, top 1 in my opinion, talent in the league right now, will arguably probably go down maybe top 20 all time when it's all said and done. I'm sure it's incredible as a fan to view that, but also as media to cover that. Kale, thank you so much for joining the show. We really appreciate you coming on. Love hearing about your experience in Summer League, and best of luck with your show. Can you tell us a little bit about, for viewers, where they can find you on social media, you and your show?
Yeah, just follow us at DNVR_sports, at DNVR_nuggets. I'm just at Kalle Sorbo, Kale with 2 L's. And we're all over Twitter, Instagram. Those are the 2 main places you can find us. And then search us on YouTube, the DNVR Nuggets podcast, DNBA Live. We're live 5 times a week. We're the only daily Nuggets show that does 5 times a week live on YouTube. So check us out.
Gotcha. Well, any Nuggets fans in the Texas Panhandle, you have a place to go now if you haven't been there already. Kale, thank you for joining. We really appreciate it. We'll be right back after the break with more Sports Drive. Stick around.